Okay, so Mrs. Yab is not here this morning. Mrs. Nemli can't come this morning. Rabbi Elizabeth can't come this morning. So I guess I'll teach another class after this class, everybody together. Not very long, because today's Rosh Chodesh. You can use some extra time for davening. And maybe we'll say some extra tillim again for Ukraine. And then hopefully after that, everybody else is going to be here. And again, the learning should be the schus for the in Ukraine, and then the whole situation should stop in an instant. And not only stop, because that's not good enough, it should turn into the world of mitzvahs v'shlema. That should be the outcome. So we're learning about miracles, we're learning about Purim. The schus of this learning would bring the miracles of Purim today. I want to go into another part on the sheets here. It's on the sheet with a list of topics. We're going to go into number 6 and number 10. Let's put it this way: number 6, 8, 9, 10. What we're going to talk about now is going to be connected to these 4 topics. First of all, the Gemara says that everything that happens, everything that's in the world has to have a source somewhere in the Torah. So the Gemara discusses where is it hinted in the Torah about Esther. I'm afraid Rabbi paper's also not coming. What am I doing here? But let me, if you don't mind, I'll take another minute to see if I can call Rabbi Page to ask if he's coming. What can I do if he's not coming? I don't know, but yeah, well, everyone's could join. Oh, that's it. Okay. Fine. Baruch Hashem, one less.
Hey, can you call Mashiach now?
What? Anybody know his number?
That was so funny.
No, I heard your voice. No problem. Thank you. I was just going to check if you're coming. Okay. So the Gemara says that Esther is hinted in the Torah, and Mordechai is hinted in the Torah, and Haman is hinted in the Torah. Where are they hinted? So on page 4, that's the pasuk where we find Esther hinted in the Torah. What is it? Page 4 is a pasuk in Dvarim, pasuk 18, where it says, "Vanoichi haster aster panai." I will hide my face on that day. I'll call her Rosh because of all the bad things that the Yidden have committed. Because the Yidden turned to other gods. So the word Aster is spelled the same way the word Esther is spelled. There's an extra Yud there, but it's the same letters, Aleph, Samach, Tov, Reish. So that's what the Torah alludes to Esther. And where do we find in the Torah Mordechai? So let's look at the next page. Parshas Kisisa.
Aster, is that like Esther Hadassah?
I don't know how Hadassah comes in there. Sounds like Esther. More, it says in this pasuk, this discusses the incense, the ketores that they brought for the Beis Hamikdash, and it says one of them is Mar Derer. See, it's underlined, and in the Targum, which is a translation in Aramaic, it says Meira Dachya. Those letters spell Mordechai. So that's where we know Mordechai from. And where's Haman hinted in the Torah? Turn the next page. This is a pasuk in Bereshis when Hashem was rebuking Adam for eating from the tree. And Hashem said to him, who told you that you are naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you not to eat? But the word, have you eaten, look at that word, it's spelled Hamin Ha'etz. Hey, Mem Nun, are the same letters as the word Haman. So this is Haman, and this is Mordechai, this is Esther. So naturally, in the Torah, there just doesn't put in things that are just cute. Obviously, there's got to be a deeper connection between Mordechai and that verse, Haman and this verse, and Esther and the verse that hints to Esther. So the simple explanation, why is Esther hinted in this word? Because the word Esther means concealment. Hashem said, I hid my face. I will hide my face. And in times of Purim, Hashem was hiding his face. Even though any time in Galus, Hashem is hiding his face. But we mentioned this a few times already, that the concealment in the time of Purim was the biggest concealment ever in history. Never before and never after was such a concealment. And the reason is because this wasn't a decree of slavery, a decree of persecution. This was a decree of, God forbid, annihilation, total destruction, total eliminating. And it wasn't in one country when we can say, but the Jews of another country will survive, but it was every single country in the world. That means it was the only time in history but there was a decree down here, which obviously resulted from a decree in Shamayim in heaven. God forbid that every single man, woman, and child should chas v'shalom be eliminated. So it was the worst kind of concealment. What is this double language? Esther, Haster, Aster. So Baal Shem Tov says the double language is that not only is it hidden, it's so hidden that they don't even see that Hashem is hidden. In other words, if Hashem is hidden and we feel Hashem is hidden, that alone means that he's not so hidden, because at least we sense that we're missing something, we're lacking something, something's missing. But when it's so deep in Golus and so hidden, it's Aster, that not only is Hashem hidden, but even the concealment is concealed. You don't even realize that a concealment, it looks like this is normal, and this is fine and acceptable. Okay.
Do they feel it?
What?
They feel happy.
Obviously they didn't. That's what it means. Haster, double Hester.
They were okay with it, okay.
Right. Until there was a decree, of course. So the question is as follows. It's true that there was a decree. And by the way, this explains another thing. The Megillah is one of the books of Torah. We have the list of all the books of Torah here. Bereshis is Torah, Nevi'im is the next second column, Ksuvim is the third column. And the third column, one of them is Esther. The only book of Torah from all these books that doesn't have Hashem's name in it once. How does that make sense? A book of Torah, which is all about Hashem, from Hashem, shouldn't have Hashem's name in it? And one of the answers are given for the same reason, being that it was a time of concealment, so therefore Hashem's name is concealed from the Megillah. This is also the reason why we have an interesting custom on Purim, and the custom is to dress up and disguise yourself, wear a mask, children put on costumes. What is that all about? Also hiding yourself, being that Hashem was hiding from us, so therefore we play out the holiday also in a way of hiding. But the big question is, all this hiding is when it was before the miracle. What we should be commemorating, what we should be celebrating is the miracle. So why is Esther named based on the fact that Hashem was hidden from us, there was a miracle though. She performed a great miracle that the Jews were saved. That should be the emphasis, not the fact that before the miracle there was a decree. That's not what we want to remember. We want to remember mainly the miracle. And the same with the Megillah. Hashem's name shouldn't be there because before he was hidden, but after that he was revealed in a way that it became a yontif forever. So these are the questions about the name Esther. The second question is, if you look at number 8, it says in Gemara, Kol hamoyadim betelin, all the holidays will ultimately be canceled. La'asad lave, when Mashiach comes, chutz mi Purim, except for Purim. So there's 2 questions about that. One question is, what do you mean it'll be canceled? One of the most important principles of Mashiach is, and we learned in the Rambam, that the Torah won't change. So we'll have Pesach, and we'll have Shavuos, and we'll have Sukkot, and we'll have all the holidays. And here it says all the holidays will be canceled, the Teilin, and the only holiday that will remain is Purim. That's question number 1. Question number 2, if it is, for whatever the case, that all the holidays will be canceled, why Purim more than anything else? On the contrary, Pesach is in the Torah. Pesach is about going out of Egypt, which is sort of the one of the foundations of our belief. It's in the Aseres HaDibros, I am your God that take you out of Egypt. That should be something that would last. So instead, Pesach is going to be canceled. Shavuos, when we got the Torah, will be canceled. Sukkot will be canceled. And Purim, that will last more than everything else. Why? It's not even a commandment in the Torah. It's from the rabbis. It came later. Purim came 1,000 years after the Torah was given. So the answer is as follows. The answer is in number 10. That line is the answer to this question. What is number 10? That the miracle of Purim was different than other miracles that we have in history, in the sense that if you look at the Megillah, without reading Medrash, just the Megillah itself, there's nothing there that happened that was out of the realm of nature. There's nothing there that happened that broke the rules of nature. Nobody was flying in the air. Nobody was inside a fire that didn't burn them. Nobody was under the water and they didn't drown. Nothing like that happened. Everything happened in a natural order. Vashti was killed because the king was drunk. That's not so supernatural. That's pretty natural. King was drunk. Killed somebody, pretty natural for these guys. Killed his own wife, pretty natural. She was a mean person. All these things are natural. He chose a new wife, natural. Mordechai overheard 2 people plotting to kill the king, natural. Look at the whole story. The miracle of Purim is connecting the dots. When you realize that this was an incredible Hashgacha Pratis that Hashem arranged that Vashti should be killed, Esther should become the queen, and as a result of that, she was able to save the Jews later. But if you look at everything that happened in the Megillah, there's nothing there that is supernatural. So this is called Nes Hamalubish B'Teva. It's a miracle that's enclosed in nature, which means it's a miracle, but it's happening in a natural order. There's another kind of nest, like the splitting of the sea, or the nest like Daniel, who was in a den of lions and they didn't devour him, or Hanani, Mishael, Azariah, that were thrown into a fire and it didn't burn them, or Abraham Avinu that was in a fire. These are open miracles. That's called Nes She'enim Melubish B'Teva. It's not in the order of nature. So now, this is a new reason why everything is about concealment. Not because before the decree Hashem was concealed, but because the miracle is also a concealed miracle. And that's why Hashem's name is not in the Megillah. And that's why the name Esther, who she was the one who was the hero, so to speak, of this Yontiv, her name also represents concealment. Not because of the negative, but because of the positive, that the miracle happened in a concealed way. Now we need to understand this. First of all, this is a contradiction to what we said before. Before we said that all the holidays will be canceled. and only Purim will be the only holiday that will continue and last. And that implies that Purim is a greater miracle, greater holiday than all other holidays. Based on what we just said, it means that Purim was less of a miracle than everything else. The other things were outstanding, amazing, open miracles. And this was a miracle that somehow was camouflaged and a miracle that was, it sort of incorporated in the order of nature. So it's less of a miracle. So Chassidus explains this is one of the most fascinating things in the Maimarim from all the Rabbeim, the Alter Rebbe, the Mitzvah Rebbe, all the Rebbes of Chabad, where they explain what is the difference between a miracle that is outside of the realm of nature and a miracle that is in the realm of nature. What is the difference? So first, to answer this question, we have to give a little introduction. And that is, in a way, a miracle that's in the realm of nature shouldn't be considered a miracle altogether. Why? So let me ask a question. If you would ask an average person who believes in Hashem, believes in Torah, and you ask the question, what is the difference? Let me start one level lower. If you ask a person who's not such a great Torah scholar, or maybe not so knowledgeable in Torah, and you ask them, what's the difference between a miracle and the things that are happening in the natural order? They will probably tell you, well, when the sun goes up and the sun goes down, that's nature. When you buy a house and you can live in it, that's nature. When you go to work and you get paid at the end of the day, in some places it's a miracle, but most places that's nature. But when something happens that's out of the ordinary, that's Hashem doing it. As if there's two ways things can happen. One is from Hashem, and one is because of nature. We understand when you study Torah that this is not true. Whatever happens in the natural order is from Hashem. So if I go on a job interview, and the person who's interviewing me, for whatever reason, likes me and hires me, and gives me a good salary, that's not nature, that because I made such a good impression, that's why I got the job. Because I said the right words and I was very well prepared. And I read a lot of articles how to go on an interview. That's what did it. No, what did it was Hashem. And if a person misses a bus and as a result of missing the bus, his life was saved, that is Hashem, which means everything in nature is Hashem. So if that's the case, what is it that defines a miracle? What's the difference between a miracle and whatever else happens? Both are from Hashem. So the answer that the average person would give you, in fact, there's also something like this from the Baal Shem Tov, that the truth is everything that happens in nature is just like a miracle. It's from Hashem. The sun goes up and the sun goes down, that's a miracle. A baby is born is a miracle. Person is sick and gets well, it's a miracle. But being that it follows a certain pattern, which this pattern continues over and over, and we see it all the time, that's why it's called nature. A miracle is when something happens that doesn't fit into the pattern. So we see more openly that it's Hashem. So the difference really is just our perception. There's no real difference in essence between a miracle and nature. Both are from Hashem. But the way we perceive it, when it's a natural thing, because it happens all the time, we don't perceive it so clearly and openly as Hashem. We look at it as some sort of pattern as how the world runs. But when it's something which can be explained naturally, we see more openly that it's from Hashem.
One thing really like shocks us, and the other one is like second nature.
That's the reason why. So if a person is not well, goes to a doctor and prescribes antibiotic, and a few days later they're feeling good. This is a pattern that repeats itself over and over and over. You don't see Hashem in it. But if a doctor says there's no, God forbid, cure for this, and then a person davens, gives tzedakah, goes to a rebbe and gets a bracha, and it disappears, and the doctor just shakes his head and says, I don't know, I've never seen anything like it. Never. I remember I once had a story. I used to go to a yeshiva 2 hours away from here. I would go there once a week, travel, and teach a Shir Tanya. It was not a Chabad yeshiva. In fact, it was not a yeshiva that even allowed the teaching of Tanya. And this was done, it was underground. I don't mean literally under the ground. It means that the boys would, after classes were over, they would go to someone's house. We would meet in this house and we would learn. One day, one of the boys there comes with a big cast on his arm. He broke his arm playing basketball and broke his arm. It's actually this time of the year. That's interesting. It was this time of the year. And I asked him, would you like to write into the Rebbe for a bracha? I'm talking, this happened in 1970, maybe one. Would you like to write to the Rebbe for a bracha? He says, no, he's not, he doesn't want to write to the Rebbe. So I said, would you mind if I write to the Rebbe for a bracha for you? No, that he wouldn't mind, he's okay. So I wrote it and I added 2 words that he was the organizer of the shir. Usually it takes time till you get an answer from the Rebbe. And I remember that I got a phone call from the Rebbe's secretary, maybe 3/4 of an hour later. I was sure it was about something else. Turns out it was the Rebbe answered right away. He underlined the words, organizer of the shir. And the Rebbe wrote, this chus should stand by him. And it happened this time of the year, which means I didn't go back there until after Pesach. Came back after Pesach, and he says, you want to hear something? What do I want to hear? He says the doctors, when they gave him the cast, they said it's a very bad break. He's going to have to wear it quite a few months, maybe even 9 months. And the doctor was actually screaming at him because the cast had his thumb sticking out. So he was playing basketball with his cast. And the doctor said, you're an idiot. I made a cast so your hand should be rest and should heal. What are you playing basketball with it? Okay, so now you're going to have to wear it longer. He said, I went to him the last time, and the doctor, the way he describes it, the doctor took the x-ray, and it goes like this, then he goes like that, and like this. Then he calls in his nurse, and they're looking. He says, I don't know, but somehow the bones moved together a little bit, early. I don't know how. So he said to me, I got a blessing from a big rabbi. He said, I don't know what you got. I'm a doctor for 25 years. I never saw a break like that, heal so quickly. So when something like that happens, where a doctor says, medically, I can't explain what just happened, that you see a miracle.
You become a chassid.
Oh, the bacher? No, that's it. That's another miracle.
That was so funny.
We always have free choice. Just 1 second. Okay, so that's the way you explain it on the surface. That it's really the same. So what makes this miracle so spectacular that when Mashiach comes, this miracle will be remembered forever. So in Chassidus it explains that it says as follows, that actually there's difference between a miracle and nature is not just the way we perceive it. There's a difference in essence between a miracle and nature, that they're essentially different in their own right, not connected to the way we perceive it. And what is that difference? Let me just see if I put anything in here. Otherwise, I'll just explain it as it is. Okay, we'll explain it. So the different, some of you might remember we spoke about this in the beginning of the year. Those that were in the beginning of the year, we had something similar to it in a mimer. But this is one of those subjects that you can hear it more than once until you get it. So this is the difference. In the spiritual realm, there are 2 realms. One would say the Shtalshlus. What does that encompass when you say the Shtalshlus? Where does it begin and where does it end? Don't be afraid to say.
Heaven and earth.
When you say Seder Shtalshlus in Chassidus, where does it begin and where does it end?
God's mind.
What? Atzilus is the beginning and Asiyah is the end. Yes. Atzilus is the beginning of this. Seder Shtalshlus means the order of the chain of events, meaning, or the chain of the spheres. So the first sphere, it starts with Chochmah of Atzilus, then goes Bina, Das, Chesed, Gevura, and then the next world, and the next world, and the fourth world. So basically, this is the end, so to speak, and Atzilus is the beginning. Now, the difference between one world and the other is beyond anything we can possibly describe. Every world is more spiritual than the other world at a totally different level, but nevertheless, they have all one thing in common. They all have 10 spheres, which means they all belong to the realm which is finite. Above Atzilus is what we call the Maila Meseder Shtalshlus. That means it's above finite. So this is the beginning, Chachma of Atzilus. And this, which is all called Keser, or it's called Or Ein Sof, or Ein Sof, means the infinite light, or it's called Keser. That is above Seder Shtalshlus. And not long ago, we mentioned this in a mimer, that the distance from here to here, you remember that? Is infinitely greater than the distance from here to the lowest place in the physical world, to a rock in the physical world. Because from here to here is finite. And it's like saying, how far is one drop of water from the Atlantic Ocean, together with the Pacific Ocean, together with all the oceans in the world? How much significance does one drop of water have? And the answer is no words. But you can't say it's totally insignificant, because all the oceans in the world are made up of drops of water. It has to have some significance. So they're both finite. But the distance from here to here, from infinite to finite, is infinite. So it's a greater distance. When things happen in the natural order, it comes from one of the four worlds. In fact, all the laws of nature come from there. Right now, the scientists don't really talk about it, but when Mashiach comes, all the scientists will explain the laws of science is connected to Chochmah, Bina, Gvura, Chesed. In other words, the fact that Hashem in the heavenly realm manifested from himself a spirit that's called Chesed and a spirit that's called Gvura, that's the source that down here, they're all the different things in the world that some have the nature, which is a chesed nature, some have the nature of water. This is water, this is fire, just as an example. All the laws of nature that pertain to water are a result of the way Hashem manifested chesed. All the laws of nature that pertain to fire come as a result of what goes on up there with Gevura. So that's where all the laws of nature really begin. But up there, it's all in a spiritual way. And down here, it manifests in a physical way. So when anything happens in the natural order, we believe it's from Hashem. But where is it coming from? From that place in Hashem, which is manifesting his finite light. What is a miracle? A miracle is that Hashem reveals his infinite light. That's above Chochmah. In the infinite light, there's no spheres, there's no Chochmah, there's no Chesed, there's no Gvura, there's no Malchus, there's no Tiferes, there's no spheres. And if there's no spheres, there's no laws, there's no rules. And as a result of that, fire doesn't burn. And water doesn't necessarily drown. And the sea and the water could stand just like a wall, which means all the laws of nature do not, and again, an illness which normally brings certain results could disappear, could just disappear without any apparent reason. And a woman who can't give birth can have children. That means it's coming from a place where there are no rules and there's no conditions and there's no sort of regulations, that this can only be one way and that can be another way. So now we understand that the difference between a Nes and Teva is that a miracle comes from the infinite light of Hashem. And things that happen in the natural order, which is also Hashgacha Pratis, so it's surely from Hashem, but it comes from the finite.
Miracle comes from the Ein Sof, or like just above Seder Shtalshlus?
Just above Seder Shtalshlus, that's the Or Ein Sof. There are levels up there too, which we'll soon talk about, but generally that's what it is. And that's why we make a bracha. When a miracle happens, you're supposed to make a bracha. Thank you, Hashem, for the miracle. I'm pronouncing Hashem's name. So the fact that you make a bracha means you're recognizing Hashem's miracle. But from a spiritual perspective, it's something happened to you this day, which comes from a higher place in the spiritual realm that normally is not revealed down here. And that's the miracle that happened to this person. So right now, for example, David should save every single person, besides the fact that we want the whole war to stop. But there are people, unfortunately, that things happen. And then there are people that can tell you miracles. They left the house, they ran away, and then they saw a bomb explode and things like that. And these are miracles that they made the right choices. They went here, they went this direction, not that direction. My father-in-law, he was fighting in Russia in World War One. Was it World War One or World War Two? They took him as a soldier, and he was in a foxhole. You know what a foxhole is? It's a long, narrow hole in the ground, and the soldiers duck and they shoot from there. So he was standing on one end, and the Russian soldier was standing on the other end. And all the bullets were coming to his direction, this Russian soldier's direction. He turns around, points his gun at my father-in-law, and says, "We're changing places. And if not, I'll just blow your head off." He had no choice, because all the bullets were going in that direction. They changed places. He said less than 30 seconds, he was killed by a bullet. Which means where he was standing, there was a bullet destined to hit that spot. And Hashem arranged that this person should change places with him. That's not a miracle? Did anything happen that's supernatural? No, but it's a miracle. Probably you'd have to make a bracha. So there are things that happen. If you are, God forbid, a person's in a car accident and nothing happens to them, you also make the bracha, even though you didn't see anything supernatural. But if you see something happen that according to the natural order, the end result should have been different, and it's not, and it's good, it's considered a miracle. And generally speaking, a miracle means that for this event, it was a light of Hashem. It came from above, say the Shtalshalos, a higher light, an infinite light, and therefore things happen not in the natural order. I guess in this case, the natural order was that the bullets were flying in this way. How come all of a sudden it went that way? And that's the miracle. Okay. Now we're learning that there's a third kind of a situation. There's a miracle that's natural. And the question was, if it's natural, it's not a miracle. If it's a miracle, then it's not natural. So how do we distinguish between a miracle in the natural order or something which is just natural? And the answer is that, of course, we can make this distinction. This is found in Gemara because they were prophets and they were able to determine that. But this is the definition. There's another situation where the infinite light of Hashem shines, and it shines in such a way that nothing changes in the natural order. In other words, for the Nes of Purim to happen, it needed to be the light of Hashem that was beyond all the laws of nature. And when that light shines, something happens, something shifts in the natural infrastructure. So the water goes this way and the fire goes that way, and different things are happening because an infinite light, it's like, imagine you have a box and you put something in it that's much bigger than the box, and the box breaks. So the finite can't contain in it infinite. And when an infinite light comes in, everything sort of shifts and moves around. It's not in its normal place. When we see a miracle like Purim, which means that the infinite light Hashem was shining, and yet in the order of nature, nothing really changed. So Chassidus explains, this comes from a higher level within the infinite. And that's what makes this miracle greater than an ordinary miracle. The only question is, what do you mean higher level than the infinite? If it's infinite, it's infinite. But so far, you're following me? No? Lost me?
What type of miracle did you just describe?
I'm saying the miracle of Purim was the infinite light of Hashem shining, but in a way that it was contained totally in the finite sort of guidelines. It did not cause any shift in the order of nature. So I'm saying normally when something happens, which is a miracle, like Pesach and the other miracles, it's an infinite light that was shining. And this light, because it's so infinite, it can't be fully contained in the finite. And in the finite level, something shifts, something is out of the order. For the infinite light to shine and be totally contained in the finite as if nothing changed, that is an indication that comes from a higher level than infinite. First, I'll say the words and then I'll try to explain it. In words, we would put it this way. Infinite means unlimited, right? But infinite has one limitation. What is it? What? Right. Infinite has one limitation. It's not finite. And therefore it can't be contained in a finite place. So even infinite has a limitation. Then there's something which I guess the best word I can use for that is something which is the absolute infinite, which means it's so infinite, it's not limited to infinite, it's not limited to finite, and therefore that has absolutely no rules whatsoever, and the infinite light of Hashem could be contained in a finite place, and it makes no difference because it has no rules. Even the rule that infinite can be in finite doesn't apply either. We mentioned recently the question about the elephant going through the head of the same idea, that it's impossible for an elephant to go through the top of the hole in the needle head if the elephant doesn't become smaller and the needle head doesn't become bigger. But the Ramban says, no, there's no such thing as impossible by Hashem. How does it make sense? The answer, it doesn't have to make sense. If Hashem would want it to happen, he can make that happen because there are no rules. Those that say otherwise, they say, of course Hashem is infinite, but the one rule that there is that infinite is not finite. But the Ramban says there is no such thing as infinite, not finite. Hashem is the absolute infinite. And where and when did this manifest? This manifested in the miracle of Purim. As a result of that, it also applies to the way we celebrate Purim. We celebrate Purim in a way that there's no halachas, that you're not allowed to do this, not allowed to do that. It's a regular day, just like any other weekday. Normally when there's a yontif, it calls for us to let go of our regular activity and be in tune with this light of Hashem that's shining. But on Purim, we can be whoever we are, do whatever we're doing, the normal things, dealing with work and money and business, whatever you do. And in those circumstances, we have this Yontif of Purim. And the reason is because it's an infinite light that can be contained in finite. So there's no shift, so to speak, in the way we conduct ourselves, because Hashem's infinite light here is shining in the regular, normal activity. Same idea. Yontif, it's also an infinite light, or Shabbos. But because this light is beyond nature, it calls for us to let go of nature. We're not working, we're not carrying, we're not baking, we're not cooking, we're not plowing the fields, we're not sowing, we're not doing all these malachas because you have to move away in order to allow this light of Hashem to shine. Same as with Yontif, same with Rosh Hashanah, the same with Yom Kippur. The fact that we don't have to move away and we just go do our regular activities and this light is shining is an indication that it's kind of an infinite that can shine anywhere and everywhere, and you don't have to move out of your way to let it come in. So in that way, Purim is superior to other Yom Tovim and to other miracles. And there's still something that needs to be explained, and that is, what does it mean that all the holidays will be canceled except for Purim? First of all, why would they be canceled? Torah is going to exist forever. And second of all, okay, now we understand that Purim is superior, but how can we say all the other holidays will be canceled? Anyone ever hear the answer to this question? No? Good. Otherwise, I wouldn't have what to teach. So the answer to this question is number 9. Shraga b'tiara maya hanile. And anyone know what that means? Anyone heard that phrase before? No. Good. Great day today. Okay. I'll just give the definition to these words, and then we'll have another class, which I'll have to go into to substitute for the halacha teachers. So the words are actually from Gemara, and they're Aramaic, and it's related to Pesach. The Gemara says that there's a halacha. The night before Pesach, we're supposed to search for the chametz, and we search with a candle. And why do we search by candlelight? Why not just by day when the sun is shining? So the answer is because you want to go into the cracks and the crevices. To look just on the floor in general, yes, by day you can check everything out. The purpose of the searching is in the small little places which you can't see just without a candle. You take a candle, you go close, then you can see if there's anything there. So the Gemara asks, so why not take a candle by day and look with it with a candle by day? Why does it have to be at night? So the Gemara answers, Shraga b'tiera. Shraga in Aramaic means a candle or candlelight. B'tiera by day. Maya hanile, what does it accomplish? A candlelight during the day accomplishes nothing. Which means that because the sun is shining and the sun is such a bright light, then the light of the candle is insignificant. And many people can testify that they burned their fingers because they had no idea that the fire was on. Because during the daytime, you do not see the light of the candle because the sun is shining so brightly. People, to apply it more to our times, if you remember when you went out camping, that your flashlight, all the batteries became dead because you didn't realize that it was on. How could you not realize that it's on? If it's on, it's shining a light. Because by day, you don't see that the light is shining. The only way to see is you cover it and it gets dark and then you can see. What does that mean? Doesn't mean the light is not there. The light is there. But because there's a brighter light shining, it's insignificant. It's as if it doesn't exist. And that principle explains why Purim will be forever, other Yom Tovim not. And what does it mean? That it'll be bottled, but to be continued after Shabbos.
So is that connected to like inner struggles, like it's the sunlight is bright, but like the struggles, like darkness brings out the light?
That's also true, but it's a little bit different. Yeah. So we'll go together in the other room and we'll have a short class on something related to